Music, to my mind, has to marry with the picture. It has to form a union, and it can't just be any piece of music.
Black Myth Wukong was released in August of 2024. The physical copy took around 6 months to make it to the shelves, hence the reason I'm extremely late with this review. It is frustrating. I would love to have got this review out during the week of its launch to sort of grab all of that buzz that the bigger name reviewers managed to get, but to have and to hold, you can't put a price on that. Well, you can. It's 54 quid. Why don't you just buy it twice? 8 years, 10 million views. If you saw the total revenue of what that is, you'd wonder why I was still sitting here doing this. I do it for my absolute unadulterated love of video games. I do it because my knowledge of the industry goes back to 1986. I do it because just one comment from a regular going, "Coop, that was alright, that," makes it all worthwhile. Do you understand that, big name reviewers? Do you understand why we're different? The plot of this game is based on a 15th century Chinese novel called Journey to the West. It's also got some heavy Buddhism influence, which I welcome, and you play as a badass celestial monkey. So loads of boxes ticked there. And talking of badass, I haven't seen an intro this awesome since God of War 3 on the PlayStation 3. And I obviously kept the original voice actor Chinese dialogue on.
我也懂，我不懂的是，你他娘的杀我猴子猴孙！
He sounds far more mischievous, youthful, and slightly more twisted, I think, than the Western voice actor. That goes for a whole bunch of characters within this game. I recommend keeping the original language on. That brings me over to my Armored Core debacle, where I did actually find the switch over on that main screen. That one for me is like super important. The American voice or accent I don't associate with mechs, and the whole hoorah marine thing, that's more Halo, that's more Gears. It's not Gundam. And so when I hear the Japanese language, when you're getting like a mission briefing, or when enemies are shouting stuff at you, it immerses me far more. And I have a very similar setup with this game. I think it must also work both ways. Let's say you're playing like a Sherlock Holmes game, and he comes out with a French voice. You would just think, no, let's just stick with that London accent and I'll read the subtitles. I am also a massive fan of the Monkey TV series. I grew up with that show, and that as well is based on the Journey to the West. That's where the staff comes from, and we have that egg. All of this is put into the intro, which is amazing. Let's talk graphics, and I went straight in at the quality mode. There are 3 choices. It's great to see a balanced and performance alongside a quality mode. Now, I always give games a chance in quality, particularly with third-person action ARPGs. I do want to enjoy that 4K resolution, but as soon as we get up to busy stuff, I pay very close attention to see whether that frame rate is suffering or not. And it's actually quite good news with Wukong. Before we fall fully into the swing of things, let me give you this week's homework, and it is of course the film Hero. Not a bad looking frame in that entire film. It is well worth a rewatch with the subtitles. Got that free Lunar New Year outfit, and I was like, no way am I putting that garish thing on. Immediately put it on. I absolutely loved it. Was sorry to see the back of it, to be fair. So as you can see the background here, my god, the craftsmanship, the way this game looks is incredible. It's one of the prettiest games of my system, full stop. Absolute beauty everywhere. There's not a bad texture in this entire map. Western devs, I said craftsmanship, not craft me some shit. This move is on L2 and it blocks projectiles. It also fills up your meter a lot quicker. We're going to get to the nuances of the controls in a second, but it kind of baffles me a little bit. I wasn't using it as much as I thought I would. It takes a while to instigate as well. And when it comes to projectiles, if you're going to get hit by one, you're going to get hit by about 16 of them. So I'm yet to wrap my head around that mechanic. This guy's voice, 100%.
小神是黑风山的土地，在此候你多时。
I found myself unexpectedly warming to loads of the NPCs in this game. That one took me by surprise. And the map, the basic action RPG mechanics behind this game, I was impressed with. I thought this was going to be a boss-to-boss complete Souls-like, because all of the footage was just bosses. I never saw any of this inter-level interaction with additionals and smaller enemies, doing a bit of farming, doing a bit of grinding, finding some secret routes, bits of loot. There was loads more to it than I initially had seen. So that Armor Core 6 model, that's kind of like maybe some smaller mechs, maybe you take out a gun placement, but it is all about getting to the boss for that level and taking them down. This is a little bit more of a back seat in that direction, but be under no illusions, this is a boss-based action RPG game which has all of its focus and most of its difficulty around key bosses and inter-level bosses. I've also bonded and formed an extremely intimate connection with the main character. I think he's absolutely awesome, and the photo mode is on another level, particularly in quality. You can hold the pans very smoothly. Getting a 360 dolly is almost impossible, and I did check it out later on in video when I moved those graphics modes around. This is an in-game pan, and notice how the user interface or HUD lifts off whenever it gets the chance. It really knows that it's a looker, and my god, as mentioned at the start of the video, I've put 17 hours into this game, and I'm pretty sure 10 of them are doing stuff like this. Let's talk buttons, because there were a few surprises. As mentioned, L2 is the semi-guard against projectiles, and that does push out some aggro. But you've got your main attack on square, which will get punished beyond all belief, and you've got hard attack on triangle. So face buttons as opposed to shoulder on attack. There is no block button to speak of. It all revolves around circle, which is your dodge, and it can be timed. The window is minuscule, but it is reachable once you get an enemy's rhythm. To force you into this, what it does, and this is my analogy for it, imagine a hand in front of your face that you know is going to slap you, but the hand does a mimic move to slap you, so you use your get out the way, your one get out of the way ticket, and then it just goes in for the real slap. So you'll see loads of mock twitchy moves, big jumps, and showy martial arts, but then comes the hit. It makes you wait, or sometimes it will be a complete reverse of that equation. This means you need to read and watch the boss's movements. There'll be audio signatures as well on moves that can technically one-shot you. Health is given to yourself manually. You can move and run while taking it, and you get it from a little ghoul bottle which can be upgraded and certain things added to give a twist on that recharge.
小庙还有诸多神奇妙用，日后你自会明白。
I thought this might have been a permanent addition to your powers, but it's just a showy interlude to one of the levels, but it's still fun going up to the enemy as this insect and then switching out to the harbinger of death that is Wukong. Wukong is the name of the protagonist, by the way. That also wasn't clear to me. This game feels a lot like Nier in places, with its Buddhism angle, shrines, gifting or blessing or offerings to the gods. And they also sort of pull in quite a lot of supernatural and quite gruesome in areas looking enemies, which I'm a big fan of. This game is a lot darker than I also expected. I was talking about that timed dodge in a minuscule window. What I was referring to is the reward you get if you get out of the way at the last nanosecond. You'll get a bit of slowdown and a silhouette of where you were last seen, a little bit like Splinter Cell. The whole thing happens in about 1.1 seconds, but it's a great chance to get some easy hits in. Stellar Blade has an identical system, along with a timed parry, and that game, along with this, could have been two of the strongest of that year. Crazy, unique, one-off enemies coming out of the roots of the plants that you harvest. There's a mushroom dude as well. They're no pushovers. The penny started dropping that this is not just a whole bunch of boss battles. This is not Shadow of the Colossus. There is loads in these levels, and they're kind of open. You can just pull up that map, go to an area that looks like it can be accessed, and normally there will be some loot or a mini-boss, mid-tier boss, or some crazy nutcase root monster. His dying animation, it reaches out. The more you look at it, the more you start noticing these crazy bits of detail everywhere. And this brings me over to one of the systems that again points to Nier a little bit, and that's switching out the stances on the directional buttons. And they come numerically on an unlock front. You start with 2, and one of them is getting on the pole and avoiding attacks, then jumping off it and whacking whatever is unfortunate enough to be below you. I am addicted to this. I'm not even looking at the 3rd stance at the moment because I'm having way too much fun sitting on top of that pole. Let's talk about the specials system, which sits on R2. So that button finally gets allocated to all of the really cool stuff you've probably seen in the footage, one of which is the freeze on the enemies, another one is like a teleport, but you've also got a turn into an actual demigod style boss that you've defeated. And the first one to come up is the Wolf Fire dude, and it's very cool fighting this bloke because it teaches you some of the awesome aspects of winning that move. Most bigger bosses either give you a cool new staff, another move, or an awesome outfit. That's a very healthy reward system for me. I missed that in Sekiro, to be fair.
你莫非就是大王说的那个天命人？
There's also an upgrade system in the form of these sparks, which allow you to pump points into either the stances, the powers, your stamina, your health. But get this, there are no pointers. You can shove everything down one column. You can remove everything whenever you want. The build system on spending these is kind of genius. It's really malleable, and you can definitely start exploring with different directions to go in with what you prefer with your fighting style. It is also completely rocking this focus button, stay glued to the enemy, even if they're jumping over your head mechanic, which From have been utilizing way back since Demon Souls. It very much increases the dramatics of a boss fight and makes you feel tiny if these things are big and maneuverable and causing a shadow over you as they come in for a killer hit. I think it was the cleric fight on the bridge in Bloodborne when I first realised how powerful and cinematic a system like that can be if it's well developed. I'm referring to the focus, stay glued to the enemy mechanic. Talking to Shadow of the Colossus, that was a proactive input. You had it on a button if you wanted to look at where that creature was. So it's not a completely new mechanic. I just think that From definitely refined it, as has Black Myth Wukong. The start of a fight is just crazy good every time. They'll open with a hit that's coming right towards you. There's no minute to savour the situation or sort of work out their move pattern. No, it's straight on right from the get-go. I also wanted to point out some of the really cool user interface with a lot of the library and pictures around the enemies, bestiaries. There's, again, loads of effort put into this. The reward from this fight with this guy involves a very cool additional special which puts these snakes in the ground and poisons your enemies. It's very good for long-term damage on a boss, and it's something you can just put down and walk away from. Learning how dangerous it is and winning it from this dude, again, is definitely a cool carrot. Let's talk about some of those bosses, because so far you've seen me basically breeze through most of them. There is one brick wall early doors in the form of the nobleman, white-clad nobleman. And if you've not played this game, I will say this, you might want to just sit down before I come out with this statement. Bro's got 2 phases. Upon defeating Wolf Fire Dude, I got the Transformational Special, which is by far your biggest damage dealing move. But it comes with its own meta. You can't jump whilst in this mode. You have different outcomes on the inputs, and whoever you're fighting knows exactly what's going down and changes their pattern to account for this. Getting more choice on this move is going to be unbelievably good. And talking of those snakes that I put down, that's one of 5 that I'm up to with switch outs on those enemy specials. Yes, I can change into a giant killer bat. Yeah, my face when this cutscene wound up, I was like, oh, well, that one was the first skill wall. No, you've got a second bit, which isn't actually as stressful as the first. It's just making sure you don't take any hits in that phase 1, which is just as tough as it sounds. So that was 3 timed dodges in a row. That's how in tune you have to be with each one of this dude's hits. It's funny, with games like this, when you're having the boss fight, you're like, this is the worst thing ever. I freaking hate this game. As soon as you've done it, you're like, game of the year, right? It's like these troughs, but the peaks are so high that those troughs just disappear off into the distance. And you're back meditating, listening to some relaxing chimes. In the thralls of my frustration and despair fighting the nobleman, I've convinced myself that it's not my low skill level that's the problem, it's the frame rates. It's definitely those frame rates. So I put it onto balanced. I don't think I really needed to in hindsight, but this fight, however, did chug massively. But it's kind of attempting something loads of the other bosses don't. Additionals exploding and chasing you everywhere. This is where I thought it may need to go onto performance, but I didn't make that switch and everything was fine afterwards. I feel quite a lot of the reviewers skimped on this between boss gameplay, and I want to make sure that it's emphasized that this is so healthy. I would love more of this in the first forest biome, huge big secret areas with waves of opponents. Every time I get involved with these smaller additional enemies, I really start enjoying myself. After the nobleman, things start settling down again with difficulty and boss fight, and you're introduced to quite cool characters that culminate in a big section of the story being told to you. I'm coming up to that in a second because there was a bit of a bombshell for me, and I had the shock of my life really with an announcement coming up within the game. And that is something I want to stay really clear of. I've had this game half ruined for me by seeing clips on X by accident, like that dude with the vase and the spider. I've seen loads of the cool stuff coming up already, and I want to shield you guys from that, because if you've not played it, some of these dudes are absolutely amazing to meet, talk to, and fight. You are then met with this incredible hand-drawn animation telling a detailed story about wealth and one of the monks that you fought previously. It kind of fills you all in, and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. And what strange place to put it as well, right in the middle of the game, middle, okay? When it said that's the end of chapter 1, right, I nearly lost my mind. I could not believe that. 15 hours. Some of the most exhilarating boss fights I have played in years. That was chapter 1. Then you're introduced to an absolutely cracking looking new desert biome, brand new and headless. Starts up with the song, which I had to put into the intro. I found the actual guy, and that's a live recording. That's why it sounds so tinny. This guy's got a Scottish accent when you have the English dialogue on. To say that I'm on board at this point in the game is a friggin' understatement. I am head over heels in love with the damn thing. It's one of the best third-person action ARPGs I've ever played in my life. That was chapter 1, bro. So they have increased the amount there is to do outside of the boss fights with chapter 2. It's great going around the desert, under bridges, finding new and exciting enemies and secrets, and harvesting, crafting loot. By this stage you've got some choice on armor loadouts. You might be looking for some silk to upgrade something, so it's all in the right place. I also quite enjoyed balanced mode in the end. I didn't feel I wanted to go back up to quality because everything was kind of pegged and smooth, and you do still have incredible resolution. I didn't spot any graininess against that superior quality mode, so it was win-win. I have not looked at how many chapters there are in this game. If there's 18 or something like that, I don't know what I'll do. I imagine there's like 5 or 6. With the pace of the story, it would be logical to have it in those sorts of chunks. But to keep this boss variety up, to keep those additionals as varied as that all the time, is going to be a hell of an accomplishment. I imagine they will do it for the whole game through. There is also, I think, additional content available now. It might be paid DLC, but there is even more scary stuff to fight in that, I think. Just staying on that subject of variants, like everything switches out with this desert level. The attire, what you're fighting, and new scary root monsters that come out of the ground. And these things have a main boss, the mushroom dudes, the mushroom clan. You're damn right I'm whacking him 3 times with that triangle. It's actually got a build on it as well. You'll see some white dots down in the bottom right hand corner. That extends the pole and increases the power you have when you bring it back down again. So not only have you got a radius buff, but you've also got more power the longer you keep it going. Here is the classic opening of a shortcut, but it's brilliant what it puts behind. Loads of us are used to this just being a convenient entrance, but it just sends 3 straight at you immediately. There is also something else I wanted your feedback on. I had the classic Mad Max Thunderdome fight, and I got rid of the little guy before the big bloke went down. When the little guy goes, big dude pulls on this huge buff and it's quite difficult. So I figured take out the big guy and then the little guy stayed. But he then goes on to spawn this massive demon thing, and I wondered if that switches out depending on which one of those you get rid of. Be very interested on your feedback with that one, because I'm not rerunning that boss again. I think I managed to stay out of that photo mode as much as I could for this review, but I could not resist showing you some of this lighting and detail on the enemies, and this is right smack bang in the middle of the fight, and this is one of the more incredible with the sand, dust, etc. And that's why I'm so interested to hear if this has a different outcome with who you kill in that fight. Okay, I think you all know where I'm up to with this particular part in Chapter 2. Yes, it is Tony the Tiger. I have not defeated him yet. He does talk to me when the machine is not on. He goads me when I'm sitting at my desk. He is waiting to have that fight with me. It's all in Chinese though, so I can't understand a word he's saying.
妈了个巴子， 还有什么吃啊？东西放下。
I think I'm safe in saying this is the next nobleman fight, and I will enjoy it. I've got him down to about half an inch of health, and yeah, he does the turning to stone thing, and that's blatantly going to be given as a reward. So this game will be remaining in the disk drive until I get a lot further. I've got to see all chapters. Whether I'll finish it, final boss, is another kettle of fish, but I'll certainly have a swing. It's 100% for the shelf as well. So from last year, we've got Rise of the Ronin, Stellar Blade, this, and I'll throw in Armored Core 6 because I'm still trying to get my head through that. I was, of course, Couch Coop, and thanks for giving me 25 minutes. I feel the game deserves a lot more than that. Also, some of its got you controversies may deserve another video. So I was Couch Coop, and I will see you down there.
Music, to my mind, has to marry with the picture. It has to form a union. And it can't just be any piece of music.